dance was my joy, and finances were tight. There were times when my mom couldn't afford to pay for my dance lessons. I remember when I had to change light bulbs and clean the floors and scrub toilets, but I wanted to dance. I knew that it was a part of my life, and it changed like who I was and how I felt about myself at the time. And I wasn't gonna let the fact that we don't have any money stop me from dancing.
Welcome, Shawn. So
Awesome
glad to have
sauce.
you. And LeaderPass.
I'm here. I made it.
You made it all the way from Canada.
Yep.
What town are you in? You're in
Kelowna, British Columbia.
Yes. I hear that's a beautiful area. And I remember, I think you and I talked about wildfires maybe a year and a half ago. Were you already there, or were you?
We were there. My wife was actually working in Ontario, so she missed it.
Okay.
But I was in Kelowna and I watched the fires burn in real time.
Wow.
We actually have a condo that's facing where the fires were.
Was it
There's
over
like-
water, over a lake?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the Lake Okanagan.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it was life-changing for me, actually, just to wake up every day and there's a fire,
So
like there's
literally,
a forest on fire.
Yeah.
There's a mountain on fire. And, it's a reminder that nature's going to win every battle, right?
Yeah.
No matter how advanced we get as a
That's true.
civilization,
Yeah.
you can't beat fire. You can't beat ice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds you there is a God, and
Exactly.
nature's in place. So.
Yep.
Man, well, we're not here to talk about that. We're talking about you, man. And
Thank
got,
you.
I want to talk about what you do. You are an award-winning choreographer, a dancer, been in movies, been touring, and then got to be just an amazing teacher. And now you've got a couple of new chapters we'll talk about. But let's talk about that. Let's start with how you got into dance and how old you were and what drew you to it.
I'm down. Well, I was a hyper kid. When I was little, I started when I was 6 years old. I
Okay.
would run around the house and, it was just a boy with lots of energy. My mom put me into dance because if she didn't, she'd have to throw me off the balcony. So I actually went to a dance studio for one day just to see if I liked it.
Okay.
But I didn't even go inside, apparently. And I don't remember this, but my mom said she brought me and I stood outside like this. I'm like, ew, that's disgusting. Dancing's for girls.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I saw another day Gregory Hines perform on
Oh, yeah.
television. He's
Oh,
a
yeah.
famous tap dancer. He's not with us anymore.
Mhm.
But he came out on stage and did this tap solo that blew my mind. And I remember him walking off the stage right. And as soon as he finished, my mom was frozen, standing behind me because I guess that was the first time I ever sat still. And I remember turning to her and saying, I want to do that.
Ah, okay.
And I was changed. It just takes one person, right?
Yeah.
And changed my life. And she says the next day she brought me into the studio.
Same one or a different?
Same studio.
Okay.
And I ran inside.
Yeah,
And
all of a sudden.
I just ran into whatever class was there and I stood there and I just started dancing, just started
Wow.
learning. So yeah, that dance thing changed my
The
life.
impact of an individual like that. Now, did your mom, was she a dancer as well, or was anybody else, or just...
No, it was just me. But my mom was a reggae recording artist for like 15 minutes
way.
in her day. Yeah.
Okay,
So
okay.
she had an album. Oh my gosh, make think about this. My mom's name is Yvonne. Hey Yvonne. Hey Yvonne. Hey mom. And she would do, the gigs late at night.
Mhm.
And music was always part of our upbringing. Like we just would play stuff.
Mhm.
And I just loved to sit and listen to her sing, and I would sing with her.
was gonna
So
ask
I
you.
was always artsy.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's how I kind of grew up with the musical influence in my household.
So it was there. It was
Yeah.
in there. That's
yeah,
awesome.
but I'm the first dancer.
That's great. And so once you started, were you in it? I mean, did you just stay in it and keep going? And
Yeah, I started with tap dance. I started with jazz. And I was awkward. Okay, embarrassing stories. I was totally that awkward kid. My arms didn't know what to do. I was pigeon-toed as well. So I was just like, you look at him like, that Shawn kid needs help. And it wasn't until my third year of dance where my teacher sat me down and she said, okay, Shawn, if you really want to take this dance thing seriously, you're going to need some ballet in your life because
good.
right now you're gangly and all this stuff. I hummed and hawed. I'm like, oh, ballet, I don't want to do it because I don't have to wear a tutu. And like, no, you don't have to wear a tutu. Like, get that out of your head. And I started taking ballet and some contemporary dance and modern dance at the time. And it totally fixed my poise and my feet. I didn't have to do any medical treatments or anything like that. Like it was literally that dance that helped correct my posture.
Wow.
So yeah, that's how I started.
Okay, that's really cool. And so upbringing at that time, you were young, you were going through, this is early school, you're in it. You didn't stop. Once you started, you stayed with
Oh
it.
no, I kept going.
Obviously, to do what you've done, you didn't take breaks or take time off. What was life like back then for family, for home?
Well, for Fam Jam, we grew up with mostly single mom life, right? My mom and my dad. I'm the firstborn Canadian, by the way, in my family.
Really?
My mom's Jamaican. My dad is Trinidadian. They met in Toronto. I was born shortly after. And then, one of those sad stories, but they ended up parting ways. But I grew up mostly with the whole, my mom doing the majority of it. And, she had different relationships and things like that. But, I'm basically the product of single mom.
Yeah.
And dance was my joy, and finances were tight. We didn't have all the resources like a lot of other people did, and there were times when I had to, hold it down for myself at home because my mom had to go to work.
Mm.
And there were times when my mom couldn't afford to pay for my dance lessons at all, and I remember when I had to clean light bulbs or change light bulbs, and clean the floors and scrub toilets. I'm getting emotional already, like every time I think about this. But I wanted to dance. I knew that it was a part of my life, and it changed like who I was and how I felt about myself at the time. And I wasn't going to let the fact that we don't have any money stop me from dancing. So
So you made your own money.
yeah,
Covered.
I made my own. I cleaned however I had to clean in the studio. I started, selling chocolate covered almonds when I was maybe 11 or so, just to get some extra cash. And I remember using that money to help pay for dance lessons and things like that too. So I was pretty resourceful when I was younger. Looking back at it now, I didn't see it at the time. I just knew, okay, this is what I got to do. But now I get emotional thinking about it because, kids should be kids, right? And I didn't really have that much of a kid childhood
Okay.
because I was, just trying to take care of myself and take care of my mom. And I had a younger brother as well too. And I would actually bring him to the studio with me to babysit,
Oh, wow.
right? Because my mom had to go to work and I had to go
Okay.
to dance. So, okay, come on, little guy, let's go. And he would just kind of hang out and sit and watch and things like that. And yeah, that's what I had to do. Yeah.
When did you know, or when did you, or maybe an instructor inspire you to know you had something special?
That would have been, I think, my first year.
Really?
Actually, yeah, as soon as
Okay.
I started dancing, because I was a sponge. You could show me anything, and I like the rhythms would immediately just sit into my head. And I remember there was a day when I was in my tap class on a Saturday, and the teacher that I had, she stopped and looked at me and she said, "Come with me," and grabbed my hand and brought me downstairs to the other class that was happening and said to the owner, "Watch this. Shawn, show the whatever it was, show this time step." And I'm doing time steps and I'm like 7 years old. "Show this step." And I'm doing the step. "Show this other step." And I'm showing the step. And the teacher said, "I don't know how to teach him anything else. Like I've literally
No
taught him
way.
everything that I know."
Wow.
And so my studio owner said, "Okay, you know what? Let's put him in this class," which was, the kids were maybe 13 and
More
I was
advanced,
like,
yeah.
10 or 9, something like that. And I knew then, okay, clearly I've got something, but I didn't really put it all together in my brain because I was still a kid.
Mhm.
But they all knew, okay, this kid, he's got something special. So I stuck with it.
Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
not one of those kids that the mom has to like wake you up and say, you got to go to class, you got to go to dance class. You were like paying for it
No,
yourself.
I'm
You were
like, let's
jumping out
go.
of bed. Let's
Yeah,
go.
I must go. And I would hang out. I would go to the studio just to be there, just to sit and
Yeah.
watch and
Yeah.
hang out and things like that. Yeah, I loved
So
it.
cool. Well, any mentors early on? I mean, I know probably your dance teacher, maybe the owner was, because that's who was in front of you
Yeah,
at the time. What comes to mind when I say that? Is there anybody that stands out in your?
absolutely. This is fast forwarding now. So yes, my dance teachers and the studio owners there, but fast forwarding, there was a friend of my mom's. He was an insurance consultant. His name was Leslie. And I gravitated to him right away because I actually didn't grow up with any male, like significant father figures.
Hmm.
And so just thinking about him right now, I'm like, wow, I actually learned a lot of stuff from him. So anyway, he was just like over one day and I sat beside him just to see like, what do you do? And he says, well, I do insurance and this and that. Do you want to come and see what I'm doing? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So he brought me to his office. And then I eventually started learning more about personal development and how important that is for, us as humans to just continuously evolve and grow. And I ended up working with him as well and, getting my insurance license and all that stuff. That was hard work. I don't recommend it. That wasn't fun. But I actually failed it was one of my like life insurance exams like twice.
Did you?
Some of that, yeah. It's like this is complex. But I got through it. And he taught me some really great stuff. One of the lessons I remember is because I was getting into this personal development thing, I remember going to the bookstores and looking if there's a book on sale that I resonated with, I'd buy it.
Okay.
But then I started getting into this habit of just buying these personal development books and just putting them up on like my shelf. And one day he came over and was asking me about one of these books. And I said, well, I actually haven't read this one yet. And he says, Shawn, the book you don't read can't help you. And just like, mine was blown.
So
it's
you're
such a
collecting the
simple
books.
thing.
Yeah,
I'm collecting
yeah,
his books,
yeah.
but not actually taking in the info from them. So after that moment, and I wish he was around because he passed away, but I'm so grateful that he told me that, because after that, like I remember the next day, okay, I'm actually taking this off the shelf. I'm going to read this thing and actually start digesting what's inside, and it changed my life.
Wow. And do you feel like that was the entrance into kind of quote both business and personal professional development, which eventually led you to starting your own studio?
Yes. So I always taught classes. I was always a fan of dancing, but then I started to realize I love to create. I love taking this stuff, the intangible ideas that I had in my brain, and putting them on myself, like making up new dances, making up dances for my friends. I would copy choreography from Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson back in the day. Those were the VCR days.
Oh, yeah.
So I would just, press pause, rewind, play, at that point, and then learn, whatever the step was, and, Michael Jackson stuff. And, what's he doing there? Rewind again. And I'd be in the basement for hours, just, making up stuff and watching other choreographers do the things. And then I said, okay, you know what? I want to start teaching. So then I started to get into teaching more classes at my studio. And then I started teaching at my high school.
Okay.
They didn't have a hip hop club. So I just asked one of the teachers, hey, can I start a hip hop club here? And she was like, yeah, sure, go ahead.
So you were still in high school at the time? Or did you go back? Okay.
Yeah, I was in high school. And I started teaching early. I started at 14.
Oh, wow.
No, I started at 13, actually. I was 13 years old when I started teaching classes. And I started a tap dance club as well. And then I think I was maybe 14 or 15 when I started knocking on dance studio doors, because hip hop was new back then. We're talking the early 90s. Now.
Okay.
So nobody's doing, and I'm old, right? Like
I know. I mean, everybody's going to think,
Yeah.
And we shouldn't say our age in front of each other, but I still think one of us is 49.
Right.
And one of us is 53, and you're the
Okay.
49-year-old. But we went yesterday, whenever I passed by, Jordan said, did he just say? And I asked Chandler, and he says, 49.
Yeah.
Taking great care of
I'm
yourself.
turning
You have a lot
49
of
soon. Thank you.
joy and energy in you, which I assume just makes it radiate.
I always had the energy. This dance thing obviously helps you. Red wine helps you to stay younger as well.
Good to know.
So teaching was just a thing, and I knew I wanted to do more of it. So back in the early 90s, hip hop wasn't a huge genre, but I had dived in and I decided I want to teach. So I literally knocked on dance studio doors. I would open the Yellow Page. First of all, Yellow Pages was the thing. People are watching this like, what are you talking about? Yellow Pages was a book. Okay. It was a book, and you'd open the book and you'd go alphabetically and you'd search. So I did that with dance schools in my city. And then I would see what their hours were, and I would take the bus and I would go to their studio and I would wait. And if they had class, I would like knock on the door like 10 minutes before the teacher showed up and whatever, and said, hey, my name's Shawn, and I introduced myself, and I teach some classes. I'm looking to teach some hip hop classes. Would you be open to, either me coming and doing a workshop or something? And they said, yeah, sure. And I guess they admired the guts it takes to just go out there. And I'm a teen still too. Like, I don't know. And that's how I started teaching. I literally just created it out of nothing.
Too cool.
And I remember growing classes and then eventually starting to get other people in that were good students and like, hey, you need to learn how to teach. So, here's some music and teach these steps and do this. And now the scene has grown so much, right? So I'm kind of like an OG in the Toronto, kind of greater Toronto area.
Okay.
Right. And then the day came when I said, I got to change some stuff. And I was in my early 20s. I was working professionally at a theme park, Paramount Canada's Wonderland. And I was a performer there, but I was also teaching at a couple of schools. And there was one studio in particular that I brought in. I had 3 classes a week, and I brought in 60% of the revenue for that school.
Wow.
Just in my classes alone.
From just your 3, yeah.
But I'm making peanuts, right? And the day came when I remember I moved downtown by myself, had my first basement apartment, and I had this crazy breakdown because I'm like, I need to pay for my rent and I'm not making enough money. I'm giving so much. My classes are packed. I know I'm great at what I'm doing and I'm not being compensated for it. And they're making all this money and they've got the database and all this stuff. And like, I can't do this anymore. So I ended up quitting there and I knew that I need to start teaching for myself because all these people are going to follow me. They are at the classes because of me.
Right.
And they're at these classes because it's not just about dance for me. It's about helping people to just be better people. And so I said, I'm just going to start renting some studio somewhere or a gym somewhere or whatever. And that's how I started building my classes, was renting. Like there's a Good Life Fitness and there was another dance school. And whenever they had free hours, I would kind of plop a class in that window and start growing it from there. And that grew and grew and grew over years to the point where I knew I had enough students to have my own physical location.
Okay.
And they would just come. And and I had my own physical spot for a decade.
And it's never rosy for entrepreneurs. You're willing to go out there and make it happen. First of all, it dawned on you that you being a great employee or a great salesperson for those other studios, you just weren't the owner. You didn't own it. So that's how it works. But when you step out there, all easy street, or was some challenging times?
Oh, that's great. How much time have we got? No, when I started, well, first of all, just trying to find a spot, find a location. It's never easy. You got to get a realtor involved to try and find, what's available for rent and, leases. And I didn't understand leases. So now I have to learn from somebody else. Like, how do you read these things? And and I didn't have any guidance through any of that. So that was my biggest frustration, is that I'm trying to create something really big I know that I deserve, but who's going to help me with this, right? So, and I didn't have the help. So I just had to figure it out. I just had to ask. I asked so many questions, and I think I probably annoyed some people as well, because I'm always like, hey, so, when it comes to contracts, so what should I be asking for? And what does this mean? And what, get it together, Shawn, right? But I couldn't get it together because I didn't have anyone else to help me figure it out. But I did, and I eventually had my own spot. But different obstacles, that was a major one. The biggest obstacle, though, that I think I had personally was that, the beliefs system that I had in myself.
Okay.
Limiting beliefs was something that held me back, because in my family, I didn't have any examples of someone who was a business owner. I didn't have any examples of anyone who was actually really successful in terms of wealth. And I knew that I didn't want to continue the same cycle of just, we were poor, man. I just don't want, it didn't resonate with me. I don't want to be reliving this. I don't want to grow up and then have kids and then we're doing the same thing and then they grow up and they're struggling. I was tired of that. And I remember I went to a seminar. I think it was just like a growth mindset seminar. And I remember being asked a whole bunch of questions for us to write down. And one of the questions was, what do you think is holding you back? And then diving into that.
Okay.
And it was at that point I realized, you know what? I'm self-sabotaging my success because nobody else in my family has had any success,
You're
any
self-sabotaging
major
because you didn't have an
success.
example, or
Yeah.
because you didn't, that was your limiting belief?
Yes. And I was thinking, well, if nobody else in your family, Shawn, has really made it, really done something massive, then who do you think you are to be doing something massive as well? And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was actually struggling with that. Once I realized that was what was really going on in my head, I sobbed, I cried and cried and cried. I remember hugging strangers at this event. Like, I finally understand why I haven't been, growing the way I want to grow. And I had been running my school now for a couple of years. And I was always just kind of capping myself at, okay, I only want, 5 more students this month. Or maybe like, maybe 10 more students this month. When really, there's an unlimited amount of students that you can take on.
Mhm.
But I just had a mental block there, right? So once I overcame that, everything changed. Now I'm motivated. Now I'm gung ho. Okay, let's
Mhm.
go into it. Let's reach out. Let's market. Let's, talk to as many people on the street. I would be on the subway and talking to people like, hey, so what do you do? And, I'm a dance coach. And no way, like, I've always wanted to dance. Well, I actually have a school up the street, blah, blah, blah. And so I was now a walking billboard
Yeah,
for
yeah.
my studio. But before that, no, I just, kind of kept it to myself.
Interesting.
And I also remember that was tied to when I was in my early teens, I also kept my dancing to myself. I would get on a stage, I would perform, but I didn't tell a lot of people
Mm.
because I was bullied as a kid, right? Because sometimes guys are jerks.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they saw me and they said, well, we're just going to pick on Shawn because he's a dancer. And I remember I remember a 2-year period where I told nobody that I danced.
Wow.
I must have been, I think it was between 10 and 12. Nobody knew. And then I remember sitting with one of my teachers, a parent-teacher interview day, and she turns to me and she says, so Shawn, I hear that you're a dancer and you love dancing. And my mom's sitting beside me and I'm like, what did you do? Why did you tell her this? And she says, no, it's okay. It's okay. This is a wonderful thing. I hear you have this talent. Don't hold that back. You should be sharing that with everybody. And I remember feeling like, really? Because I don't know, and I was so uncertain about it. But yeah, what about forget about the other people. Do you love it? Yeah, I do. Well, then share that. Again, one person having a
Yeah.
conversation with me, and it just changed everything. So after that, I said, okay, I love to dance, and I don't need to hold that back, and I don't need to care about what other people think about me and dancing. Let's just do it. You're passionate about it, right, Shawn? Yeah, just go and try that out. So
Hmm.
yeah, so that was a reminder when I was in the whole studio era of, yeah, what are your limitations? Just do it, Shawn. Just go. And
Do you see, I'm sorry, I
yeah.
want to ask you about this. Do you see kids facing the same thing now? Because I look at dance now and it's probably completely different than what you're describing as, all the TV shows, all of the celebrated. Has that changed, or are you seeing the same thing? Whenever you look at,
It's worse now.
it's worse
It's
now.
worse now.
Okay.
These kids that are growing up, a lot of them are struggling with this confidence, or I should say a lack of confidence. They're seeing these TV shows and they're seeing a lot of, scrolling on social
Social
media.
media.
And it's a wonderful tool. At the same time, it's such a powerful weapon to the mindset of these dancers, and they feel like they're seeing these incredible dancers. Oh, I can't do that. I can't dance like them. I'll never make it. I watch these TV shows and, oh no, like, I'm not that talented. I'm from a small town. I'll never get out there. And they spiral. And now I find like we have this epidemic of dancers who just don't believe in themselves. I travel as a judge for festivals and competitions, and I'm seeing mind-blowing talent on these stages, and they walk off the stage and their shoulders are down and and sometimes they're crying, and I'm wondering like what happened there? They just delivered this incredible performance, but they don't believe in themselves. So this whole dance world has changed my life because I realize more now that I have a responsibility to continue staying in it because it's not just about me. It's about letting them know they can do this. Like,
Mhm.
I remember those days when I struggled with my confidence because of bullying. And so I don't want them to grow up doubting themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a responsibility now to share that with them, say, hey, you can do this. I just saw you crush it on stage. Keep going, keep dancing, keep following your passions. Because I understand now that it was because, that one person every once in a while would say something to me and it changed my life. And now I feel like I'm in that position where I'm that one person, or might be that one person, that something that I say, a dance move that I do, might actually trigger something in their brain in a positive way that makes them say, okay, yeah, I can do this. And then who knows, 20 years later, they win an award for something and, they may say, hey, thanks to Shawn Byfield,
Yeah.
I'm still in the game, right? Or
Yeah.
I'm not looking for the accolades, but I'm just looking to see that they follow their heart, because the world has enough, we have enough accountants, we have enough lawyers, we have enough, people working and pushing paper clips and things like that. We need more creatives
Yep.
out here that are, sharing their blessings, sharing their talents with the world, right?
Yep, absolutely. So studio life, let's jump in that for a second.
Okay.
And I want to talk about what we've been doing here because I'm super excited for you. And no, this is kind of a way of taking everything that you've experienced, ups and downs and pitfalls of running your own studio and dealing with parents, dealing with kids, as well as some basic practices that you've talked about. But let's talk about the playbook. So tell us about what we're doing. Because I think this builds on not just you as a dancer and an encourager of people, which you clearly are, even just talking through the kid thing just a second ago. But man, this is exciting.
This is big. This is huge. The fact that I'm even here right now with you is huge for me on a personal level. But this dance teacher playbook, man, okay, all the advice and the wisdom, the lessons, the tips that I wish I had been receiving when I had my dance studio, this is now my opportunity to share that feedback, to share the roller coasters and the ups and downs. Managing a studio is a lot of work. And if you're a dance teacher, chances are you're probably struggling with something, right? Whether it be, the finances, or you're struggling with managing your team, or you're just managing yourself, because we don't take breaks, right? And so in the dance teacher playbook, we dive into all those, how to manage your class and, what the mindset is to deliver with your students, or, all the way to, juggling your team and how to keep them motivated and how to keep them loyal and how to, get that recurring business and all the things that I wish I had someone sit with me and say, hey, here's what you got to do.
Yeah.
I now get the opportunity to share that with teachers so that they don't have to go through the roller coasters that I had to. You can easily shave 3, 4, 5 years off of the struggles of your life if you're just willing to listen to another coach who's already been there and says, I've been down that path. Don't do it. Go down this path instead. It's going to make your life so much easier. So I'm grateful to be able to create this course and to help the teachers really get it and really crush it like a rice cake.
So like a rice cake. So the idea behind this, as I've watched you do it, and we were with you the whole time, thinking about what you're teaching. And I thought about your story about how you were starting and you're looking for what is the contract? What is this? How do I do it? You've really laid this out in a very, very, I would say simple. It's powerful. It's not something that I would look at and say anything other than just tremendous value for people, because they can take their time wherever they are in their career, it looks like. Because you talked about things even with how to manage the rowdy kids, techniques behind that, building on each one, which was brilliant, I thought. But you do it in such a fun way. I mean, it's just fun learning from you or watching that. But yeah, this is real stuff.
This is real stuff. Yeah. For dance teachers of all styles, and just, that one lesson, just how to deal with, kids who are disruptive sometimes. And a lot of times as a dancer or a dance teacher, we aren't taught how to teach. We aren't taught how to control a classroom. We aren't taught how to get dancers problem solving and thinking on their own. We aren't taught how to keep them engaged. We're just in our own creative brain, and we just, maybe want to get a routine out. We just want to get them dancing, right? But there's so much more to being a pro superstar dance coach, one that inspires those dancers to grow up and do it too, than just a bunch of steps.
Yeah.
So that's what the dance teacher playbook's all about.
Yeah, it's incredible. And you're gonna have workbooks and literally playbook as well as video teaching that. which I think is great. And the dynamics behind what you're teaching combined with how you delivered it. I'm just telling you, coming from my perspective with
Cool.
doing a lot of these, super engaging. Super
Yay.
engaging.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Which is
right?
who you are. And even I thought about the classroom management that you were describing, and I pictured the little you that you were describing earlier with all the energy and bouncing off the walls and ready to go and
Yep.
bottled up, which is, how to help channel that.
It's always awesome to think back on how much of a headache I might have been when I was little, because I know I was a hyper child. If my mom were here right now, she'd be, yep, that was Shawn. And so now I understand how to handle dancers of all ages, right? I've dived into the psychology and the neuroscience, a lot of it too, on what's going on in your brain and how to get someone to pay attention, right? In the classroom. I've had a lot of parents and teachers come up to me and say, how you just had a room of like 150 kids. How did you get them all? They're all quiet. They're all listening to you right now. What are you doing? So I'm teaching that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do you view that? I mean, when you approach either a room, you're looking at a bunch of little personalities or a bunch of big personalities. How do you walk into a room like that, knowing what's ahead, and use all that you've learned, your personality, of course, who you are, which is a very genuine, authentic person, I might add. How do you view that when you step into the room? What are you seeing in your mind?
That's a great question. And I'm actually seeing before I step into the room.
Hmm.
I'm a huge visualizer in advance.
Okay.
I like to think about what's going to be happening in the next hour or tomorrow or whatever it is in my brain first. And I find that a lot of times dance teachers will just walk into the room and just start teaching. But if I know in advance, hey, you're going to be teaching 50 kids, you're going to be teaching 100 kids, whatever it is, then I need to close my eyes and mentally prepare. Okay, so here's what it's going to look like. Everyone's going to listen to me. I'm going to walk in there with authority. I believe in what I'm doing. I have a ton of value to offer. I'm going to wrangle the kids with ease. They're going to come to me like the Pied Piper, and we're going to have the best time. They're all going to leave with a big smile on their face. So I actually, to this day, I still mentally visualize what they're going to look like, how they're going to respond to me, when they're going to raise their hands, how they're going to interact with each other. And I find that because I've already gone through teaching the class before I've taught the class, it just makes teaching the class that much more easier.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a little ninja.
I like it. I like it.
Secret, but it works.
That's a great scene. You're creating it before you walk in.
Yeah. It's kind of cosmic, right? Like none of us can really fully grasp how the universe works, but I know the visualization component is something that's worked forever. So I use it.
Yeah. So do you do that with the problem parents?
Yes.
I'm thinking,
yeah.
I've got to ask the question. Like, I know you've had probably some crazy scenarios of some over exuberant parents that think either their kids are the next Michael Jackson,
oh my gosh.
Is that just always going to be a part of it? And is that increased because of social? I thought about when you were saying social media, it's not just the kids that are seeing that.
Oh,
it's the parents scrolling going, my kid should be doing that, or my kid's better, or, just giving extra ammo to come down. How do you deal with that?
It can be tough. Dealing with that can be tough. And listen, a lot of, not all of them, but you got parents that really think their kid is, better than sliced bread, right? And obviously we're all, we're parents and we love our kids, but there are times when your kid isn't the sliced bread, your kid is just a loaf right now, and that's okay. It's going to take time to get those slices in. But sometimes you're caught off guard, right? I've been caught off guard before, and you have to remind yourself to be calm. I actually talk about that in the dance teacher playbook as well, about being calm, right? Because you can't control everything, right? But if you know you're going to be having a dialogue in advance, you can totally mentally prepare for that. You can say, okay, the dialogue we're going to have is going to be easy. It's going to be smooth. We're going to understand each other's side, and we're going to have an awesome end solution to it. And as long as you remember, it's about the kids. It's not about your ego or the parents, not getting along, whatever. It's always about what's best for them. And as long as you start with that, then everything almost always works out perfectly. Now, nobody bats 1,000, right? There are tips that I've shared that I've used and I've gone through everything, and you still just can't make everybody happy. Like, but at least I can sleep at night knowing that, you know what, I did my best. And they just don't want to come and see my side. And they just really think that their kid is all that and everything. Or maybe it's a personal thing. You know, I've seen, you know, parents who are truly living vicariously through their kids. And unfortunately, you know, the kid struggles, you know, because they're not loving the dance anymore because mom or dad is trying to basically relive their glory days through them. And, you know, that's their personal stuff to deal with. But when they're in my care, then at least I know that I can do my best and I've got the tools to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking of kids, you've got a 5-month-old.
Yeah.
That is your fam. What do you call it? The fam jam. Fam jam.
Yeah.
The fam jam. Your wife was a dancer.
Yes.
May still be. I don't know if she is. Still is. And y'all just recently tell us a little bit about little guy.
Yeah. Well, my wife and I, her name's Nicole, and my son, he's 5 months old. His name is Canyon, and he's the cutest thing. Oh my gosh, my heart. And he is hopefully going to be a mini dancer like us. We'll find out soon. We're going through the 4-month sleep regression situation right now. So
which is shocking how much energy you've had for the last 24 hours.
These bags, I still feel them. They're pretty heavy. I got a lot of luggage up here.
Yes.
But it's so worth it, right? Being a parent, it changes your life. And everything I do now is for the family, right? Like, but mostly for him, because I don't want him to go through all the crazy roller coaster struggles.
Yeah.
And I obviously will support whatever he decides to do when he's older. If he decides he wants to dance, then that'd be amazing. But if he says, hey, I just, you know, I want to BMX, I want to swim, doesn't matter, as long as you're passionate about what it is. So I'm trying to lead by example, you know, same with his wife. We both met through dance. Like when I say dance changed my life, I'm not kidding. Like everything that's come to me has been because I chose to follow this path. And we met through dance. I was teaching a workshop somewhere, and then she came up to me actually, and she's like, hey, I'm Nicole. And I was like, hi, I'm Shawn. And, you know, the stars aligned and things like that. Yeah. And we were actually friends for years and years and years. And that's when, you know, you least expect it. It's like you just hit it off one time. And so Canyon, his name is spelled with a K, Canyon with a K, and the K is for Kelowna, because that's where we live. And, you know, his mommy and daddy, their first official date was in Kelowna as well. So he's got some stories in his name right there. And we're so proud of him already. He's sitting up on his own right now like this. And he gets a little top heavy, so he kind of starts falling over. But yeah, he's got this wonderful smile, an awesome giggle. I think he has his daddy's sense of humor as well. So what was it that made you start LeaderPass?
What is it that made me start LeaderPass?
Yeah.
Well, I think first of all, being submerged into the leadership world and events world and speaker author, and just kind of fell in love with the personal growth, the professional development that you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Struck me early in my 19, 20 years old, read a few books that kind of set me on a path, but I stayed, I guess, connected to that over the years enough to kind of find that part of my purpose is to help those who can add value to others do so, and do it with excellence, and do it with scale, and reach as many as possible. So that inspired us to evolve. And I think things happen in our life, and like you were describing how you met your wife, and how your progress went from the dancer to the studio to now the teacher of teachers. And I think that evolution happens whenever you follow that path.
That's pretty cool.
About. So
you know, so you're an example of someone who also decided to, let's just go for it.
Yeah.
Just follow that path. Because you could have said, you know what, I'm done. I'm just going to work somewhere else, or work for some other production company and not take it to where it is. And so the reason I ask you is because if you didn't decide to follow your path, your calling to start LeaderPass, I wouldn't be here. You know, I'm also here too because you shot John Maxwell way back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day.
You know, I'm a certified, you know, John Maxwell team.
That's right.
As well. Right. And I wouldn't have seen him if you hadn't shot that.
Because John would not have succeeded without me, clearly.
Of course, right? John, if you're watching right now.
Yeah, we all know better.
You know,
we all know better.
Royalties go this way.
I happen to know a few people. That's right. I happen to know a few people.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
Those connections are cool, though.
Yeah. Right?
I love those connections.
But if you, like, it's the butterfly effect. Because if you think about it, you know, it was the production that John Maxwell had shot years ago that I had purchased a live stream ticket for to watch. Because of that event, I decided to actually get certified with his organization.
Yep.
You had shot all that stuff.
Mm.
If you didn't shoot that stuff, I wouldn't have seen it.
Mm.
And if I didn't see it, then I wouldn't have been certified. And I wouldn't be here with you today.
There you go.
See what I mean?
There you go.
So you're actually a big reason of why I'm sitting here.
Yeah, I won't take that credit, but thank you. Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, this butterfly effect is very, very real, man.
Yeah,
and
it's cool.
Yeah.
Where do you see, just curious, just looking at, like we talked about TV shows and America's Got Talent and just, you know, where do you see it heading? I mean, is it basically going to be the same as when you did things in the 90s and 2000s as far as teaching and kids and where everything's heading with dance? What's your take?
That's a great question too. I definitely see the desire for entertainment will never disappear. You know, as humans, we just always want to be entertained ever since, the Roman days and the Colosseum. So I do see a shift now from it being on television to being online.
Okay.
I can see the new shows being streamed on, big platforms like Instagram and Facebook. I can see them now becoming a media company, not just for social media, but actual media. I have a feeling that, YouTube and all of them are going to start becoming the main providers of our entertainment and watching. Those kind of shows, like the dance shows and the talent shows, will never go away. Right? Because we always want to root for the underdog.
Right.
We always want to see and cheer for somebody in our community or someone that we resonate with. Like, like dance. Oh my gosh, you're always going to root for the dancer, right?
Yeah,
because that's a connection that you have. So I don't see that going away. I think shows like there's a show called Dance Moms. Don't sue me, but I feel like shows like that don't paint the positive picture of what actually goes on in our community does a disservice, right? Because now you've got the rest of the world thinking, oh, well, is that what the dance world is all about? Like all the drama and fighting and everything. It's not at all. It's such a glorious space of positivity and good energy and talent that is being misrepresented with certain shows like that. But they're catchy and people like drama. That's why these reality shows will never go away. These bachelor shows and things like that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't watch them. I watch things that fuel my brain, but they won't go away because it's human nature. We're always curious. We like the gossip and the drama and things like that. So unfortunately, I don't think that's going to change, but I just think the method on the delivery is going to change a little bit.
I would agree with that. Where do you see yourself? You're a visionary of created your life. You visualize things. You're creative. What do you think is going to be in your near future?
Speaking on more stages.
Okay.
Definitely. I love what I do. And well, actually, you just reminded me of something. Where do I see myself going? And I'm just thinking again about these talents. And my talent was dance and is dance. But I learned that you need to start understanding the difference between your talents and your gifts. So what do I mean by that? Your talents are, the things that are innate in you, right? For me, it was always music and dance, and I can move and groove. But as I started to teach more, I realized that, hey, you know what? My talent isn't just to teach dancing. I'm leaning more into my gifts. And I realized that my gifts is actually empowering and uplifting people.
Okay.
And using my voice, right, to allow other people to believe in what they do. So I've been diving more into my gifts, and my gifts are being on bigger stages. And, if I can reach many instead of one-on-one, like I love the one-on-ones, but I can impact more people being on larger stages and being able to use the talents of dance to tap into my gift of empowering and uplifting other people. That's what I see myself doing in the future. So I do see myself being on larger stages internationally as well as nationally. And I see myself being home even more because, dad life.
Yeah.
I just want to be with my little guy, right? And I don't want to miss the stuff.
Yeah. That was an early motivation. I remember you telling us on the first call, Chandler and I were on with you, and you talked about, hey, I got a dad life I want to live here and not always be gone, which is part of why building a model that serves people at scale, like what you're doing right now with the playbook, is going to help you do that, which is super excited and excited to be a part of that. So thank you for trusting us with that journey as well. And,
thank you.
If people want to find you right now, website, social, how do they get in touch with you?
ShawnByfield.com. I'm the easiest person to find on social media as well. It's the same, just Shawn Byfield. I keep it simple.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going to look forward to a lot of future stuff together, and super excited to have you here today to talk through your story and also the lessons you've learned and your new LeaderPass playbook, which is going to be coming up very, very soon. And I'm sure a lot of studio instructors and teachers will really benefit from it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate fist bump. I appreciate this whole experience.
Absolutely. Thank you.